So hi guys, welcome to another episode of Strategy Talk. Today we are going to be talking about Targaryens. I know unfortunately within this last couple of weeks there's not a lot of Targaryen news, but today here we're also going to be joined with Anything But Ones. So they'll know a bit more about Targaryens than I do, and from wargames.id also Kai. So starting with Raymond and the film, why don't you guys introduce yourselves?
All right, this is me, Raymond, of Anything But Once.
This is the film. I like to play the Unsullied, and we'll see how it goes.
I'm Kai, and I'm a dothraki enthusiast, so I'm dying for new stuff to come out.
So you like wild men, half dressed, riding on wild stallions? Mm-mm.
Yes. The less dressed they are, the more happy I am.
Alright, Kai, why don't you take us away with the first unit that, well, not exactly a unit, the first model that we see revealed for Targaryen, and it's, who is it, Kai?
Well, it is Jorah Mormont, the Wandering Knight, who was, at some point, it was probably the worst unit in the game, or at least tied to it, and they really buffed him up. He benefits from a lot of things, really. First of all, the lower morale damage means that it is harder to kill him. Because normally, if he fails his morale test, he's just dead. Because that's D3 plus 1 and he had 2 wounds. But now he has 3 wounds and the damage is D3. So even if he fails his morale test, that's a 33% chance of him dying. On top of that, his ability is now long range and benefits a lot of guys. Now he can actually give rerolls to Outriders or any other range attackers, and I consider that to be a big thing. You don't get a lot of abilities that rerolls range attacks, so I see this as a really big improvement. And he's 3 points, one of the only 3 points unit that we'll probably have. So yeah, lots of value in the new Jorah.
I like to just chime in here. Yesterday, actually, I managed to demo the game to one of my friends, and I was actually playing with Jorah Mormont because it was just a box-on-box battle. The one thing that stands out to me actually is his move 6. He's currently still move 5. With a movement of 6, basically, when you march, you can actually give Jorah that ability to, move deeper into enemy lines, get him out of trouble. Totally agree with Kai there. The fact that morale just won't kill him outright, like in the first turn, which the fun has done to me many times. So at least we've got one activation. It's 3 points, but the risk, the downside risk is lower.
One thing that I'd like to make note is that his solo rider is actually explaining like a couple of things. Number one is his wounds, and also at the start of his unit's activation, he may perform one maneuver or retreat action. Is this possibly going to be like some buff for like solo cavalry units?
That's a good question. I don't know actually. Is that rule still is it currently in the rule set?
Because the thing is that for cavalry, at the start of the unit's activation, it's supposed to only perform one maneuver. But now for this solo rider, he can also perform a retreat. That means when you engage him, he can actually retreat and then charge back in.
Yeah, you're right. It's only one maneuver. So they've given him a retreat action as well.
Yeah. It also lets him retreat and then march into objectives. So it's going to be very easy for him to sit on top of objectives now.
But we're all assuming that he'll survive the first win.
I mean, he can charge a unit and then on the next turn, do his retreat and then move into the backline.
That's possible. It's probably a corner case scenario. You probably won't want to do that, but if it ever comes to it, it's the ability is there. Because scout opening is such a powerful ability, you really don't want to risk losing that,
Yeah.
So what's interesting combo you see in like using the Order Scout opening? Because it says friendly unit attacks on an enemy gains precision and may reroll any attack dice. So are you going to be using it mostly for like long range units, or like going to be using it for like melees and stuff?
Well,
veterans.
First of all, we don't know what the other units can do right now, but assuming it doesn't change that much, Outrider shooting from flanks with rerolls and precision will definitely do a lot of damage, and any unit that's already engaged can benefit from the rerolls. especially if any of the Targaryen units gets dropped down to 4+ to hit, which apparently a lot of units will. We don't know. We don't know yet. Like, will screamers be 4+? Will screamers be 3+? But rerolls are always good. So,
well, Jorah's role in my army would still remain very similar to what he is currently doing, giving me an extra activation, which is very critical because most of our units are so expensive anyway. And then, it's really a support piece and such an irritant to your enemy's army. If they don't have shooting, for example, or something that can control a wider area, they're gonna hate Jorah.
All right, so I guess with the new potential of Jorah as a support piece rather than a meme piece back in 1.6, I think we're going to be seeing a few more Jorah. So you're going to have to get that Jorah painted, Kai, eventually.
Eventually I have to. Yes.
What? You didn't paint him? He's like a nice
Really? He's tiny. He didn't do much. I proxied him with a Zorth Rider because I really like the Zorth Rider.
All right, so let's move on to like the second spoiler for Targaryen. We only have one NCU, and it's a bit of an old NCU, which is reworked. Raymond, why don't you take us away with what he is?
Okay, so Illyria's Boon. Now it's changed a little. Each time Illyria claims a zone, you may replace that zone's effect with target one friendly combat unit. They restore 3 wounds, and one enemy they are engaged with becomes weakened. The key standout for me is, of course, it's going to benefit those armies that want to stay engaged. It gives you a bit of sustain. On top of that, Illyria has also jumped up in points. He's gone up to 4 points from 3. Where I see him coming in really handy would be with a slightly more, I wouldn't say defensive because majority of Targaryen armies aren't defensive, but those that lean towards slightly more defensive, like the Targaryen Unsullied Pikemen, for example, or even with the Stormcrow mercenaries, which I tend to use them to actually just hold points. So yeah, again, it just gives an effect of a bag, and you just grab any zone, it replaces it. Dofeng, you mentioned something earlier about like bringing 3 NCUs with something like a what's it called, Piat 3?
Yeah, Piat 3. So you get access to all 6 zones, which means that Illyrio can always help to heal any unit that you want.
Yeah. So we also, I think, previously were thinking about using him with the dragons. I don't know, Kai, what do you think would happen with the dragons and Illyrio being in his current format?
Well, we really don't know what the dragon does right now, but what I do know is that he's a 4-point unit that replaces a zone effect. Now, when you have an NCU that replaces a zone effect, you tend to need 3 NCUs. When you only have 2, you don't have enough. You don't have enough flexibility because there's all these zones that you must take, right? You need to take the sword. That's irreplaceable. You probably want to take a letter. So if you only have 2, it's hard to find moments where replacing it is the best option. So I think Illyrio is no longer the first NCU that you bring. Because he was. He used to be 3 points, and he's the first NCU you bring. I don't think he's that anymore. I think he's a more specialized NCU now.
Absolutely. I feel exactly the same way. Illyrio is like my Sansa.
Well, Sansa's like, also 4-point now.
Yeah, exactly. So now here's the thing, though. With pointage for NCUs across the board, or everything that we've seen so far, just pushing that 4 points mark, we are going to see less activations on the game then.
Yes.
Yes, especially because NCU commanders are gone now, I think.
Yes.
Yeah, so it's 12 points or 2 NCU.
Yeah.
That's going to change a lot of things.
Yeah. So either you lose a lot of bot control, or alternatively, I don't know. Again, we don't know enough in order to make that judgment call right now.
But there are
those expensive cavalry more enticing to bring because everybody is more expensive across the board.
You mean the veterans?
Yeah.
Also, I think solos are going to somewhat fill that gap of cheap activation, because we know there's Joris 3 before 1.7. In 1.6 we saw a lot of 3-point solo in Night Watch and in some other, so I think solo might have a more prominent role in the next patch.
And that would be interesting, as long as they're not too shitty.
Yeah, but it also, you then ask the question, does everyone have access to 3-point solo? Because that was the big deal back then. How many 3-point NCUs you got? And Stark has 2. Most factions have 1 or 0. So 3-point solos might fall into that category. Like you can't have too many of them around.
Christ in Lannister.
Well, you have the mountain that rise, so whatever, you don't need a 3-point solo.
He'll eventually come.
No, it was confirmed that he'll come in Lannister Heroes 3. I believe that was one of the takeaways that we got from the Asia Virtual Simon Expo. That basically Chanel confirmed that it's going to be coming out in Hero Box 3. But I think we'll see that after this, so it might still take a while, maybe next year. In any case, let's continue about our discussion about the Targaryen. On the attachment side, we've got one attachment that was previewed. What do you want to take it away, Defon?
Alright, so this is the Screamer Core. So the previous version of the Screamer Core has Shattering Assault, where when this unit charges, the charge attacks gain Sundering. So the change is that now they gain the order Martial Training. When this unit performs a melee attack, before rolling attack dice, this attack may reroll any attack dice, and the defender becomes vulnerable. There is a drawback to this change, because now Screamer Cores can only be attached to Targaryen units. That means they cannot be attached to Lost Rider. So for this Screamer Core, what I feel is that it's actually a boost, because Martial Training, I feel, is more beneficial than Sundering, because you can reroll any attack dice even if you are running through a bog, and the defender is vulnerable, which will give more wounds than Sundering.
If you like, I can actually just jump in here. So one of the things that I love running like just massive dothraki horde. So I have this one list, and Stefan, you've seen me play it before. Effectively, the issue with that list was that the moment it contacts the enemy, if it doesn't break through, I am screwed. This Screamer Core allows me to, when I move into the second round of combat, I still have a chance because I have the Order Martial Training. I want to just bring us one quick step back, because if you look at Illyrio Mopatis, which actually gives me a bit of that healing component, actually it's not too bad, because now if you have a unit of Dothraki, for example, engaged with an enemy, I can heal and I can weaken the guy. So my chances of actually totally being wiped out because I'm locked in a combat, like say for example against Baratheon's Sentinels, is a tad bit higher. My survival chances are a bit higher.
Yeah, another thing that we should take into account is that they say that they're reducing the overall killiness of units, right? They're reducing the accuracy from 3+ to 4+, and the damage from morale check is also lowered. So there's a bigger chance that your Screamer will stick around in melee, rather than before this, they get hit once and you only have a few wounds left. But now there's a bigger chance for that, and the Screamer Code will definitely help you take advantage of that.
Actually, now that you mentioned it, I just realized that Illyrio actually has quite a bit of value, considering how much effort has to be put in to remove one wound. Him healing 3 wounds is pretty big.
Yeah, I think so. And then because normally when you get your Alpha Strike and you start the turn, you take the Sword Zone. The Screamer hits, they don't hit hard at all. At best, if they have an Outrider Co, you get vulnerable. But now you get both rerolls and vulnerable, and there's no Varys to stop you. So that's I'm happy. Varys is the bane of most of my games, really. The old Varys, anyways.
The old Varys.
What about the drawback to be attached to Targaryen units? I know that you don't like Flayed Men with Targaryen stuff, Kai, so I think this is a buff for you because you like to play with flavor, right?
I do, but that doesn't mean I want everyone to have to play the way I do. It does mean that I don't feel left out when I see everyone else, doing well with flayed men and me having to stick with my screamer. So there's that. It's a petty little satisfaction for me.
I've never quite actually used the plate man either, and I think this fluff is a really welcome thing.
But I don't know if this is going to be the norm. Attachments being able to attach only to your native units. I think this is the first one. No, I think Greyjoy might have something like that too.
Reaver Captain can only attach to Greyjoy units.
Yeah, but that one I thought was because it's a crazy ability to have in, say, you don't want outflanking Stormcrow archers. That would be crazy if they shoot someone from the back. So I thought that was specifically to them, but apparently it's going to be more normal than I thought. Because the Screamer Co's ability I don't see like crazy synergies with it, but they have this too. So maybe that's just going to be how they balance neutral and non-neutral units.
Can I just jump in here and ask one question? How many times can you reroll a die?
I believe it's
twice so far.
Twice, right? Yeah.
When you charge, you can reroll once, and then enemy forces you to reroll that with a weaken. At the moment, that's the only double reroll I've seen.
Yeah, that's true.
Because are you thinking that with order martial training, you can charge in, reroll your attack dice, and then use martial training to reroll that?
That's a good question, man.
Well, it says you declare it before you roll the attack dice, and then you may reroll. So I'm not sure.
I believe that there is basically only one source of reroll for each players, but we need to. Well, we can check in the rulebook later on. But this is something that's interesting. But what it makes it seem is that not only that you get the benefit from martial training. Well, when you're charging, you can use the charging bonus. When you're already engaged, you can use the order martial training. Or if you feel like, for example, that because it also gives you vulnerable. So even when you're charging, you can use the reroll from the martial training. So that's something interesting.
Okay, because for the rulebook, it says that if either player has effects that will cause attack dice to be rerolled, they are applied now. So once the final results have been generated, any effects that trigger after attack dice are rolled may be used. But it doesn't say that you can only reroll each die once. So the question will come back to Jorah Mormont. Scout opening. You have a charging bonus, you have the martial training, and you have scout opening.
Oh my god.
Yeah, because the triggers all doesn't stack. I mean, as in Jorah's order is start of a friendly turn. Screamer Co is when performing melee attack, rolling attack dice, and charge bonus just happen.
Yes.
All right. I hope this is in the FAQ.
well, if either Michael or Fabio actually listens to this, or somebody, please send it down their way. Because I know Fabio is actually subscribed to my our YouTube channel at the moment.
Oh, me too.
Yeah. Well, hopefully this gets sorted out before they hit the table.
Also, we do have like a Q&A session. I believe in like 12 hours from now.
22nd, right?
Yeah, well, it's we're living in the future, right? So
yeah.
It is still like early in the morning for like the US guys. So it will happen later today, yeah, I believe.
Yay.
Okay, well, time to ask questions then.
All right. So let's enough talking about the Screamer Co's and their weird reroll interaction with some of the other cards that they were previewed. And let's talk about the last changes the last revealed information from Targaryen, which is the card Swift Reposition. Start of any turn, target one friendly combat unit, it shifts 2 inches. If you control a horse, that unit performs a 3-inch maneuver action instead. Now, let's move on to hot takes territory here. What card do you think will replace Swift Reposition? Sorry, well, I mean, like, what will Swift Reposition replace?
I'm guessing Unstoppable Advance because they fill the same role of making you move further This one has alternate modes. You can use it defensively too, but that's my guess.
My guess would be actually Overrun.
No.
No, don't say that. That was the one good thing. The one good thing we had.
Right, because both the designers have mentioned that they want to remove all this out of turn activation nonsense.
But how much?
Don't we have units with overrun still? Don't we have like Greyjoy has overrun
Really? In Commanders.
In Commanders, okay.
It does make sense in Spirit, because they do want to reduce the amount of attacks. I mean, in the Baratheon video, Defeng also mentioned that it might countercharge or Arsus the Fury might be taken out. And I don't know, my overrun might not be like, for example, an ability that should be tied into a faction, should be tied into certain commanders. But again, I've been on the receiving end of do you have overrun? And yes, and it gives me a sad face.
Because for Targaryen's commanders, they say that all Targaryen commanders will have a 4th commander tactic card, which will replace a specific generic one. So my guess, for me, what I feel is that Overrun fits very well under Khal Drogo.
Yes.
Yeah.
Rather
so basically, it will replace like
that.
something, and then Khal Drogo will have Overrun.
Yes.
As his 4th card. Okay, I can dig that.
I mean, I don't want to see Mother of Dragon with Overrun. That's number one. But you did mention, Kai, that this also has a defensive capabilities to card. Like
I did. So it can be used at the start of any turn, right? Which means it can be used at the start of your opponent's turn. Now, one of the most game-breaking moments in Sith games is when you fail a charge. That's a wasted activation. You're out of position. You may take damage, and even 3+ it tends to be a very scary prospect, because there's a 33% chance that your activation is going to be ruined. Now, this card, because it moves 2 inches, is it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it moves 2 inches. It can turn a 2+ charge into a 4+ charge. 2+ charge is scary enough already sometimes. You dread that number 1. But for a lot of people I know won't even bother if it's a 4+, it's a 50-50 chance.
Yeah.
A lot of people I know would just go, okay, I'm not doing it. So, and because it's done reactively, you can really mess with people's strategy this way.
Yeah.
This is like a Howland card, right? Like it sort of like feels like a Howland card.
Oh,
actually, no. Slightly more Rob Stark, actually, if you ask me.
That's true. Well, Rob moves 3 inches, but he only uses it defensively. I don't think he can use it offensively. This one has that offensive component. And because you can also do a maneuver if you control a horse, that would mess with people who thinks they're safe, because, I'm out of their line of sight. Suddenly you turn around.
Yep, definitely.
I like it.
Yeah, any cards that forces your opponent to be in a position where they can't really react or take like an increased amount of risk. Like you mentioned, failing a charge is one of the most crushing moments in this game, and that's why Raymond has his channel name is anything but ones. How many times in your channel have people actually rolled a 1 for the charge?
We should actually come up with a counter somewhere, like a ding, ding, ding.
Actually, right, we had a time when over one game, we were just counting the number of times Raymond was cursing the 1. He went up to 6.
I mean, if you name your channel anything but once, you will roll that 1, right? You're kind of jinxing yourself on that one. All right.
Yes.
We're now in, I guess, hot takes territory, because there's not a lot of more things to talk about Targaryen. So one of the things that was interesting is a couple of weeks ago, Chanel appeared on Discord and asked a question, one question that we can ask to him. And it seems that I was first, so I asked him, how will dragons be changed to make them still stand out but not broke the game? And the reason why I asked this question is because I understand that dragon, according to the flavor, needs to be the meanest, baddest thing in the game. It's the equivalent of like you're bringing a jet fighter to a medieval warfare. It's meant to be a scary thing. It's meant to be a huge field presence. But I feel that a lot of people now, when they look at dragon, and the fact that is that dragon ignores 80% of the rules. You don't need to roll. You don't need to take a panic test. You ignore terrains, etc., etc. The list goes on. So I asked him, like, how will the dragons be changed, to make them stand out but not break the game? And the answer that basically he gives is that, like everything else, damage overall has been reduced. So dragons, as with everything else in this game, will be scaled back, but it will still have the highest source of quote-unquote bypassing defense damage in the game. And this discussion spawned a lot of speculations of how dragons will be scaled back. So I know that we don't really have time yet to play dragons here because we don't get dragons, and dragons have been pushed back distribution globally. But we've played the dragons, of course, in TTS a couple of times. So the dragons expert here, or Targaryen experts here, what do you think? How do you think dragon will be scaled back in terms of damage?
Ooh, Kai. I'm going to throw you under the bus there.
Okay, well, I've been playing with dragons a lot because there's a lot of competitive players where I am, and when dragon came out, most of them constantly asked me, "Could you please use dragon so I can find countermeasures for the dragons?" And because none of them play Stark and none of them play Free Folk, other than Evan there, who the first time I tried dragon, he brought out like 3 trappers. He was like, "Okay, let's try dragon." So that was a terrible day for me. But everyone else who plays Lannisters or play Baratheon, they get wiped out a lot because they get a lot of their cards, right? So they said that damage is the primary component that will change, and you already know that the morale damage will go down by 1. And if they reduce the actual damage of the D3, the current bonus, if they reduce it, then you would deal maybe 4, 5, 6 damage a turn, which is probably acceptable because normally it would wipe out over half of your tray very reliably with the vicious and the damage that they have. So, but I still don't know how they're going to deal with the mobility aspect of it and the lack of morale. It can pass morale so easily. So I don't know. I don't know yet. I just know that the damage components will be lowered, and that should at least make other units more survivable. So yeah.
I don't have really much to add actually because on our side I can't do TTS and I've never yet touched the dragons even at all until it's up.
Really? You should.
Yeah, no, computer's just trash at the moment. So
yeah. So it's a shame that I never actually tried them on the tabletop before they get nerfed. Not even here yet.
You know the boxes actually come with the card, so you could still say, "Hey, do you mind if we just go?"
Yeah, my friends would hate me for that.
Friends, who do?
So I mean, yeah, that's the thing about dragons is that a fun fact also about Mother of Dragon especially is that they currently have 75% win rate in Asoya stats, especially in the competitive scene, only having quote unquote bad win rate against Stark and Free Folk, the exact 2 faction that Kai mentioned.
I also think that a big issue is not just with the dragons, but the Mother of Dragon herself. She's very powerful. First of all, she gives you discount, which is already a big deal.
Yeah.
But she comes with a drawback that I don't think is that big. She gives extra VP when she's killed, right? It's hard to get to her. But then she has probably one of the most powerful commander ability in the 1.6 patch, because being able to take a card from your deck and from your graveyard over and over each round, that is game breaking. Especially because she has that defensive card that cuts wounds by half. And that's just recycled all game long. It's very powerful.
Yeah, and the fact that each dragon has 8 wounds, so if you want to like one-shot a dragon, you need to potentially deal upwards of 16 wounds to them.
Yeah, that is correct.
Can I just ask Kai, what
Yes.
is the unit that you put the Mother of Dragons in?
So, first of all, you already have 21 point covered, right? You already have 21 points in the 3 dragons, because if you bring Mother Dragons, you need 3 dragons. That doesn't leave you with a lot of options, because Targaryen did not have... you need at least 11 points for 3 NCUs. And Mother Dragons really need her NCUs to get cards. So normally I put her in Dervish, because they're fast enough to keep up with the dragon. They're tanky enough. They're somewhat tanky enough. Some people I see use them in, Blackguard, but Blackguards are slow, and she needs to keep up with the dragon to use some of her cards like Dracarys.
We haven't seen the dervishes here either, so they're still stuck in some desert somewhere.
Oh yeah, that's true. This is all TTS stuff, really.
Yeah, I mean, like, as much as I would like to play with mammoths, I don't think we'll see mammoths until, probably, like, say, April. It's been pushed back, like, the distribution worldwide. I mean, recently we only just got our attachment boxes. So, yep. But yeah, I mean, I'm happy. In a way, I'm happy that they sort of acknowledge that dragons have the biggest source of damage, auto wounds in the game. And respectfully, they should. It is a dragon. Dragon fire do melt, like, armors and etc. And it should be like the biggest, scariest thing in the game. However, I am still curious how they would see to manage the rules on, like, for example, the panic or movement, etc. Because again, even if you scale back the damage, I think having 3 units that sort of breaks the game. There was like even like one joke, right, where if you play dragon, you only need like 1d6.
Yeah, you only need the D3 and the sum of D6 to take the hit.
You just need a D3. You don't even need to roll. Like you just auto hit, and it deals what, D3 plus what was it? What was the previous damage for dragon?
D3 plus 3.
Oh yeah, 4, right? But yeah, so that's how it's going to be worked. Hopefully, in the Q&A, there might be some people asking about dragons, and of course, it is in our greatest wish that we would like to see some Targaryen spoilers within the next couple of weeks. So Kai here will have a new army to test against some of my Lannister stuff. Yeah,
well, to play against your Lannister, because I want to try some of the neutral options, because I believe some of the neutral options are very beneficial for Targaryen. The Zorus is really good. I don't know if the Screamer will be as good, but the Zorus is it seems very powerful in this new edition where there's a lot of defensive techs, like Lannister Supremacy got buffed, Horrific Visage. And then you have a 6-point infantry unit that's reliable and mobile enough in the mummers. So there's a lot of things to play with even before I get actual Targaryen spoilers.
Anything that you'd like to add for Targaryens, Raymond? Are you going to be playing more Targaryens in your battle reports?
Yeah, I hope so. Actually, Targaryens were actually before it starts. Targaryens were my first love. And I just wish I had access to like the other stuff, because for the longest time I really needed that NCU, that free NCU as commander. But now that we're scaling things a little differently, I really am looking forward to actually getting them on the table again.
Yeah, I mean, well, I know that you don't like proxying, but technically you could use the Dany model as like the Queen of Marine.
Yeah, definitely knows me. Yeah.
All right. Any other closing thoughts from you guys, Defeng or Kai?
Well, I hope we get more things to try out, because I like trying these things out, even though it's not a full version yet. I just really like playing Sif, but I don't want to use my 1.6 rules, because I feel like I'm missing out. Everybody else is happy about their units, new commanders, and all I have is just Jorah solo.
So at the moment, you guys are just playing like whatever is revealed plus 1.6.
Yeah, we're Frankensteining it at the moment.
Ah, yeah.
But also we're trying the new scenarios, which I think are really good. So and that one's already released, right? That one's already in the new rule books.
And I believe the World Cup that is currently running is also using the rulebook 2021. So they're using 1.6 unit with 2021 rulebook. So yeah, some of the new scenarios pretty cool. You guys should probably check it out. But yeah, I mean, I would like to see more of Targaryens because I'm interested to see how they're attempting to sort of balance things out. And of course to see more table time because we do love Civ. It was our main game for a while. It's a bit slowing down now because of the rules limbo and a bit of but yeah. So yeah, I mean, if nothing else, then thank you everyone for joining in this episode of Tactics Talk. If you haven't yet subscribed to Raymond's Anything But Once, do go and subscribe to them. Any shout out for your channel?
Yeah, it's just YouTube. Search for Anything But Once. It's not just my channel. It's a group of guys that we just do it. Definitely, it's a very big contributor to the group as well. Yeah, check us out. We're a funny bunch.
All right, and of course, if you haven't subscribed to wargames.id, please subscribe. I would like to get that unique YouTube link.
Yes. Get that 500, dude. We'll get you there.
Amen. All right, so wherever you guys are, have a good day, have a good evening, and stay safe, stay healthy, and happy wargaming.
See ya.
See ya.
Bye.